Welcome back. My name is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and this marks the halfway point of tier ranking every traditional sized Breyer horse mold. I might attempt to do a different video next week, maybe just to break it up a little bit, maybe something that's more about me and what I am doing here. I don't know, I haven't really decided yet, but we'll touch on that a little bit more later. For now, back to the horses. First up today is Indian Pony, introduced in 1970, sculpted by Chris Hess. This is another mold that definitely shows its age, but he does have a certain charm. Breyer has created a million models on this mold with a million different colors over the years, and he has been a one-of-one Breyerfest auction model 14 times, for what that's worth. I actually don't have any of these in my collection, even amongst my childhood horses, and I don't think that's likely to change as none of them super stand out to me. C tier, but it's like C-. John Henry, introduced in 1988, sculpted by Jeannie Mellon Herrick. I like this guy, but why is he so damn lumpy? I have Cincinnati, who is Ulysses S. Grant's horse during the Civil War. Even though this particular model is from either 1999 or 2000, this body is a bit of a mess. As in, if I were to take the box down and take him out, it would look very similar to what you're seeing here as far as the lumps. Supposedly newer models on this mold don't have this unevenness, which is good because, yeah, it's kind of off-putting and strange, to be honest. Lumps aside though, I do like this mold, and I would consider seeking out the Peshmerl model, which was a semi-leopard Appaloosa special run from Breyerfest 2021, who came in both a bright bay, which you see here, and buckskin coats. I'll give him a B tier, but it has to be a B- due to the flaws in the older models. Jumping Horse, introduced in 1965, sculpted by Chris Hess. I actually had no idea that this mold is as old as it is. I remember when Starlight came out in 1994, and I thought it was just the coolest model horse ever. Like, that immediately went on the wish list, and I did end up getting him. As much as I have a fondness for this mold though, it's not a great example of a jumping horse. We obviously have much better molds nowadays, like the previously mentioned Bristol and Newsworthy, who we have yet to get to. So all things considered, he is a C tier. Justin Morgan, introduced in 1973, sculpted by Chris Hess. While it's not a fancy mold, I actually think he shows a decent amount of Morganness. Like, if you plop this model in front of me and asked what breed I thought it was, there is a decent chance that I would guess Morgan. And that's not always the case of being able to somewhat discern a breed a horse is supposed to be, of these plain standing horse molds that we have seen. Definitely the most bizarre use of this mold was in 1987, when it was paired with Western tack and a small doll and given out as a souvenir at something called the Madame Alexander Doll Club Convention. These dolls are certainly something. Here's an array that is currently for sale on eBay that I believe were given out in McDonald's at some point. But then again, I'm over here making an extensive multi-part series about model horses, so who am I to judge? Anyway, Justin Morgan, C tier. Keldec Count, introduced in 2005, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. Obviously, compared to the Justin Morgan mold that we just saw, this wins hands down as the better Morgan. He is quite striking, but hasn't actually been used for any models since 2016, when Weathermont Ethan was a thing, so hopefully he'll be back soon. He's been a one-of-one Breyerfest live auction model 3 times, Most recently in 2012, which isn't exactly recent anymore, when this classic champagne version of him sold for only $700 and was the lowest selling auction model that year. Ouch. Anyway, Keldec Count, B tier. Kimosabi, introduced in 1990, sculpted by Pam Tally Stoneburner. I also remember when this horse was new, and I liked him, although I never got one. Structurally, he has some challenges, so no surprise that he hasn't really been out in regular production since the year 2000. Breyerfest 2014 did have a set of 4 Deco Kimosabis as a silent auction which sold for $2,000 for the entire lot, which I can kind of understand. It was the second most expensive silent auction, but then again, the $2,000 was for all 4 of the models as opposed to a single horse, unlike every other lot of auctions. D tier. Lady Faze, introduced in 1976, sculpted by Chris Hess. Lady Faze was a portrait model of a quarter-horse mare and has been used for a variety of stock horse models over the years. Over time, the length and shape of the tail have changed. Despite having a hoof in generic horse territory, I quite like this mold, and I actually think it makes some sense, because not every quarter horse or paint or Appaloosa is beefy, so I like this as a representative of the lighter versions of those breeds. Some of my favorites include the guy that we just saw before this one, the Golden Charm Glossy Appaloosa stock horse from the 2006 Treasure Hunt, Hope and Glory from the Connoisseur series in 2002, and Red Rock from 2009, who was a Mid-States Distributing limited edition horse. And there are others. Judge me if you want, but she is an A tier. Lady Roxanna, introduced in 1986, sculpted by Rich Rudish. Another slightly funky mold that we haven't seen used since 2006, and probably for good reason. Choices were made that make this one big miss, unfortunately. F tier. Le Fire, introduced in 2002, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. I know this is supposed to be a foal that is literally just like an hour old and learning to stand, hence the rough coat and everything, but I am just not feeling this one. And then there is the face, which I'm not even gonna say anything more about. I'll just leave it there for a moment. The only versions I remotely like are both Breyerfest live auctions, the Copenhagen Blue Deco from 2003, which sold for $1,500, and also the Dapple Gray Arab Mare and Chestnut Overo Colt from 2021, which I actually couldn't find a price for, but I'm willing to bet it was much more than $1,500. I am a monster, C tier. Legionario III, I think, introduced in 1979, sculpted by Chris Hess. Here we have an Andalusian performing a Spanish walk step. This mold has had some interesting colors, and even a cursed flocky version, which was part of a circus set alongside an equally tragic ballerina in the 1985 JCPenney holiday catalog. Nowadays, there are so many better Spanish horse molds. I don't have a lot to say, we're going D tier. Lipizzaner Foal, introduced in 2017, sculpted by Brigitte Eberl. Why is this horse so straight up and down? That's not correct, I don't think. It's a very elegant mold for a foal, especially compared to ones we've seen in the past. I do kind of like Julep, who was part of the Julep and Pim pair that was a special run for Breyerfest 2018, although if you were trying to show him, you would have to come up with a different breed because there are no painted Lipizzaners. I'll be generous, B tier. Lipizzaner Mare, introduced in 2017, sculpted by Brigitte Eberl. I do like this mold, though with the exception of just a couple of models, you, again, couldn't actually show this horse as a Lipizzaner. Naturally, my favorite model on this mold is Zeitgeist, the Breyer Fest Volunteer model from 2022, one of which is currently going for over $1,000 on eBay, so that is not happening anytime soon. She is nice though, and I do want her. A tier. Lipizzaner Stallion, aka Adonis, introduced in 2023, sculpted by Heather Paleo. Time to put the flame suit back on. The mold is okay, but I hate, full letters, bolded, italicized, underlined. I hate the current Adonis model. I am glad I was not in the Premier Club last year, or this year I guess, because anyway, I would have been angry about having to buy this model, and I probably would have turned around and sold him immediately, so I guess at least there's that option. It's the modeling around the eyes and the muzzle that I know is an Appaloosa trait, but the way it's done here just looks really bizarre to me, to the point of being off-putting. Like, I just physically don't like looking at it, and I'm surprised that the spots on the body are just so, like, painted on, or stamped on, rather. I'm curious to see what is done with this mold in the future, so for now I'm going to give it a D tier, purely because I'm hoping there will be better models in the future. They honestly cannot get, in my opinion, much worse. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this one correctly, but Lenarth True Britain, aka Welsh Cob, introduced in 1994, sculpted by Martha White. This is a spunky little guy who hasn't come in a ton of different colors despite being around for nearly 20 years. He's been a one-of-one Breyer Fest live auction model twice, in 2003 and 2005. This is the 2005 version, which as you can see was a unicorn, and was most recently seen as a regular run model in 2015 and 2016. I don't have much else to say, but wouldn't totally mind adding one to my herd. B tier. Lonesome Glory, introduced in 2000, sculpted by Kitty Cantrell. This is a really nice mold that's primarily been used for thoroughbreds and has appeared in a variety of colors. He was also used as an Akelteke limited edition model in 2007, which is certainly a step up from Bolya, but not quite as nice as the actual Akelteke mold that we have now. This is another solid B tier. Loping Quarter Horse, aka Latigo. Okay, we're gonna ignore that. Introduced in 2013, sculpted by Summer Prosser. So, sue me, I like stock horse models, and that includes this Loping Quarter Horse. I think my favorites are the Buckskin Bollywood Surprise Special Run Breyerfest horses, matte or glossy, from 2017. The two Overos from that same special run have really, in my opinion, cartoony looking eyes, which is too bad because otherwise I think they're quite nice. And the Appaloosa ones, for once, don't really grab me. I do like the addition of the shoes though, I think that's a nice touch. B tier. Lying Down Foal, introduced in 1969, sculpted by Chris Hess. Another old mold that shows its age. Some of the colors it's been are cute, but not realistically painted. Like Hot Tamale here from 1996, I actually kind of think that the horse that I am currently painting, and I have zero painting experience before this, looks a little bit more realistic, but that's just me. Anyway, it should probably be an F tier, but again, I guess I'm just feeling generous today. Lying Down Full, D tier. Mano War, introduced in 1967, sculpted by Chris Hess, from a design by Grand Wood Carving. A very classic thoroughbred mold from way back. In both 2000 and 2016, he was given an Appaloosa coat, which I guess he could be. Unfortunately, we are slipping into generic horse territory again, so we're going D tier. Marabella, introduced in 1997, sculpted by Kathleen Moody. Her face can have some issues sometimes, but I like this Morgan mare overall. There have been some fun or interesting models with this mold, such as Nympheus, a dappled pearlescent lavender gray who was from the Just About Horses Connoisseur series in 2011. They did a lot of interesting models in that series. I feel like I've been saying it a lot throughout these videos, and I never knew that that existed until I started doing this. Anyway, I also like the glossy dappled gold model named Glittery, who came with Father Christmas as part of the 2004 holiday horse set. She's fairly nice to look at, even though she isn't perfect. B tier. And believe it or not, that takes us to the final horse of this video, and that is Mangalarga Marchador. That is tricky to say. Introduced in 2016, sculpted by Sarah Minkowitz. I think this mold is interesting. It hasn't actually been used that much, with only a short regular run from 2019 to 2020. The rest of the times this mold has been used exclusively for limited runs. I probably won't try to find one for myself, but I don't think he's bad. C tier. Okay, let's take a look at how our tiers are doing. So for the second week in a row, there has been no movement with S tier. We still have 6 horses. When is that going to change? We now, though, have 16 horses in A tier, 19 horses in B tier, 30 in C tier, 13 in D tier, up from 9 for the past 2 weeks. And I want to note that this blank box is the Lipizzaner stallion Adonis, because there was a blank square, well, alright, it's not here, but where there is the list of all the little icons, there just happened to be a blank square, and there was not one of the Lipizzaner stallion, so that's what this represents right here. And finally, we have 9 horses down in F tier. As I mentioned, now that we've hit the halfway point of the traditional sized mold tier list, I think we'll do something a little bit different next week. We'll take a break. Maybe I will do a sort of about me type video, as I mentioned earlier in this one. So we'll see. But I don't think we're gonna just do the same old tier ranking next time. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. I really do read and respond to comments, so definitely keep leaving them. I appreciate it. And I will see you next week.